Well, welcome to the 700 Club. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is denouncing Australia's leader after a Hanukkah terror attack yesterday. He accuses Prime Minister Anthony Albanese of fueling the fires of anti-Semitism in his country.
At least 16 people died when gunmen fired on the crowd at Bondi Beach in Sydney. Chris Mitchell reports.
The killing spree sent hundreds fleeing for their lives. Dozens of videos spread the horrible mass slaughter around the world nearly in real time.
So you're watching it kind of happening in real time, and to just feel that helplessness, that there's nothing you can do for them, you can just watch, and it's just horrible to see what is happening.
This picture epitomizes the horror of the massacre on Bondi Beach in Sydney. Arsen Ostrovsky, an international lawyer, moved to Australia 2 weeks before. Australia's 9 News captured Ostrovsky moments after the shooting spree.
It was absolute chaos. We didn't know what was happening, where the gunfire was coming from. I saw blood gushing in front of me. I saw people hit, saw people fall to the ground. My only concern was, where are my kids? Where are my kids? Where's my wife? Where's my family? I survived October 7th. I lived in Israel the last 13 years. We came here only 2 weeks ago to work with the Jewish community, to fight anti-Semitism, to fight this bloodthirsty, ravaging hatred.
Ostrovsky is a friend of CBN News. We interviewed him just 2 months ago in Tel Aviv's Hostage Square, just before the release of the remaining living hostages. The dead include a Holocaust survivor and a child of 10 years old, and several of the wounded are fighting for their lives. The 2 attackers were a father and son. The son reportedly investigated for ties to ISIS in 2019. The father died in the attack. Israel and Australia are also investigating if Iran had any role in the attack. There are also heroes. Video shows this man, reportedly a Muslim fruit shop owner, seizing one of the attackers and taking his gun. Australia has seen a surge in anti-Semitic incidents since the 2023 October 7th invasion by Hamas. Jews have been attacked and synagogues and cars set on fire in major cities. Sunday, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu read from a letter he sent to Prime Minister Anthony Albanese earlier this year, criticizing him for appeasement of global anti-Semitism after Albanese called for a Palestinian state.
Your call for a Palestinian state pours full fuel on the anti-Semitic fire. It rewards Hamas terrorism. It emboldens those who menace Australian Jews and encourages the Jew hatred now stalking your streets.
President Trump condemned the mass shooting as a purely anti-Semitic attack. Australian Christian Abigail Crombie-Heading told CBN News the massacre is a wake-up call for the church.
And I think this is a really important opportunity for Christian leaders, for pastors, for churches, to just step up and say that this is not okay.
The Australia massacre took place on the first day of the Jewish celebration of Hanukkah. Communities across the globe are on high alert as the 8-day holiday continues. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Well, Rabbi Abraham Cooper of the Simon Wiesenthal Center joins us now from Los Angeles. So, Rabbi, you warned a year ago. You gave out a letter warning people to not go to Australia because of the rise of anti-Semitism. Why wasn't your warning heeded by the Australian authorities?
Well, good morning, and thank you for having me on. I actually brought that letter to Australia's ambassador to the United States, the former Prime Minister himself, Kevin Rudd. We had a very long conversation, and I must say, a brilliant man, etc., but no real connection to the points that we were raising, the alarms we were raising, and of course, everything that happened in Melbourne with the firebombing of the synagogue, and no real information for months, only recently confirming that the Iranians had been involved, etc. They just didn't get it, or did not want to get it. And for those of us who look globally at the pro-Hamas efforts around the world targeting Jewish communities, the quietest, most successful communities, Toronto, Montreal, Melbourne, Sydney, etc. We saw the pattern emerging, and let me make it clear, the Australian police and intelligence services, they can do their job, but they can't start doing their job until the political elite ruling the country, those who've been elected to office, indicate to them that it's a priority. Yesterday's debacle and horrors did not have to happen, and we were outraged, we were shocked when we lit at the first candle last night. Right after the blessings, we read the names in Hebrew of the people struggling for their lives in hospitals. One thing we weren't was we were not surprised by what transpired. And I'll tell you as well, for those of you who saw the Prime Minister Albanese's first statement, didn't even mention Jew or Hanukkah or terrorism, and his press conference didn't exactly inspire a great inspiration. We don't need words right now. We need an action plan. And I believe that if and when the political will and the will of the people finally is heard, then we could see a situation where there will be a safe future for the Jews in Australia. But if this continues along the same route, it'll be a huge victory for the Islamists and part of the bigger blueprint that impacts on every Jew around the globe. And if I might add, I'm also the former chairman of the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom. I know that your program and your community follows very closely and has been outspoken about the fact that groups like Hamas and those who support them hate Christianity. As we know, it starts with the Jews. It never ends with the Jews. I saw it myself in Nigeria when I went with Pastor Johnny Moore to Abuja and met with Christian survivors of Islamist terrorism 5 years ago. Nothing has changed there either. So the poor Chabad community, these are the people who are the Jewish Peace Corps of the Jewish world. I think at least 2 rabbis were among the dead. It's not the first time Chabad rabbis have been killed just for helping people. So we're grateful for your leadership in this area and for your compassion and concern at a time when we're lighting our candles of hope, of rekindling our commitment for the destiny of the Jewish people. It is extremely important that our neighbors, led by our Christian neighbors, stand with us and combat this hate.
Well, I have to thank you for your stand for the Christians in Syria, for the Christians in Iraq, when ISIS was attacking the Christian community. Your voice, it seemed like Europe was turning a blind eye. It seemed like even here in the United States, the Christian community was turning a blind eye to what was going on. But you stood so strong that the world needed to act, that there was an attempt by ISIS to wipe out the Christian population in both of those areas. And it's incredible that you stood so strong with us. Well, what's your opinion of Netanyahu's statement that it's the support of a Palestinian state on the 67 borders, that just that statement on its own is fueling anti-Semitism?
Well, unfortunately, there's no question. And in many ways, it was really a matter of the timing. Australia served as kind of the caboose for Macron's train. You know, we had France, the UK, Canada, Australia, etc. Democracies in the midst of the existential threats and the war that Israel was struggling with. And while there were still hostages being held in Gaza, alive and dead, that these world leaders, including Albanese, would come out and essentially reward the terrorists. I think this is really at the core of what's going on. You have to also see how the other side, how the enemy, how the evildoers respond. That was nothing less than a reward for the terrorists and those who want to wipe out the Jewish state and the Jewish people. Prime Minister Netanyahu might be framing it in the political framework, but when you think about it, if you have this kind of behavior, and we're not talking about North Korea or Iran, when leading democracies give an approval, an okay sign, yes, we're going to reward your barbarity and your butchery, and the Jews can be left twisting in the wind. Well, we're in the 21st century now. There's a strong Israel, and thank God it is going to defeat Hamas and persevere. But to do that in the midst of war is a signal and an empowerment for the terrorists to do more. And on a local level, when they see that police for almost 2 years, not only in Australia, UK, France, just basically stand by in Toronto and do next to nothing to help the Jewish community. Every time there's no accountability, every time it's business as usual, that's a further empowerment of terrorists. And of course, unfortunately, we also have terrorist cells amongst us in the United States. And even if we didn't, the power of social media to reach millions of people and to spread its poison and to promote this kind of behavior is outrageous. And if there's one slither of light from the horrors yesterday, without Ahmed, the fruit juice seller, there probably would have been maybe hundreds of more casualties. The police, inexperienced in dealing with terrorism, were not initially effective. And it was an Australian citizen who was an Arab who said basically to himself, not on my watch, and took down one of the terrorists and I think wounded the second one. He's a great hero and we're grateful for him. But, you know, Jews and Christians believe in miracles, but our rabbis taught us you're not supposed to rely on miracles. We have to be involved to ensure a beautiful future for us. That's where the faithful must lead. We have the spiritual wherewithal to do so. We have to take care of our own. And part of Hanukkah, again, is today, this week, we'll be mourning. But last night, my daughter, who's visiting from Israel, was at an outdoor concert here in Los Angeles, a Jewish concert. It was packed. People did not stay home. Jews will not cower in the corner. That's what the enemies of faith and of democracy want. We can never give them that victory. I shudder to think what will happen if that will be a course of action.
What would you encourage Christians to do now? You know, it's one, we can obviously offer our condolences, but I just have the sense we need to do even more. What would you encourage Christians to do now?
Well, I did, while I can't see the program, I heard a comment from a Christian leader in Australia. I think what needs to happen is for people of faith to take the leadership, and I don't care who they vote for, whether it's left or right down there, progressives or conservatives, or in our country, we have to reset America's commitment, Australians' commitment, that when it comes to the targeting of faiths, anti-Semitism, hate for Christians, crimes, the internet hate that goes unchecked. And we must demand a bipartisan, nonpartisan, governmental policy that doesn't change, that makes sure that police are properly trained and that the intelligence communities work together against the scourge of anti-Semitism, because it is a global game plan. We can see that the largest and most influential Jewish communities in the diaspora are the ones that are often suffering the worst targeting. And in this time, Hanukkah for us and Christmas, New Year's coming up, it's a great time for families, for loved ones, for friends. It's in the United States, we're approaching midterm elections. We have to send a message to whoever our elected officials are, starting from school boards right up through the Senate of the United States, to prioritize the fight proactive fight against terrorism, and to especially what I told Pope Leo last month when I saw him, Pope Leo the 14th. We need Christian leaders to consistently speak out against anti-Semitism. We cannot defeat this scourge on our own. But thank God also there's a state of Israel, a strong state, and thank God also for the unbelievable support of Christians here in the United States and elsewhere for the Jewish state. I think that's an investment, not only in terms of our beliefs, but a strong Israel means that you have at least one nation that will not bow to Islamist terrorism. And they can do that because of the support of the United States.
Rabbi Cooper, thank you so much for being with us, and keep lighting those candles. May God, He's given you life. May He continue to sustain you. May He bring you to this season again and again. We're with you in this fight, and may you stay strong. Thank you for being with us.
We feel it, and God bless you and your family and your viewers.
Thank you.